All right.
There we go, Damian. How are you this morning?
I am good. What about you?
I am doing great. It's Thursday morning, busy
Mhm.
already, but looking forward to the end of the week.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Welcome to Afternoon Talk with Damian Anderson. I'm your host, Damian Anderson here. And on today, I have on a very special guest with me on today's episode. Um, he is a principal of a K through 8 contract school in the west side of Chicago. So please, everyone, welcome on Mr. Charles Williams. Um, yes.
Thanks for having me, Damian.
So yes. What I like to do in every episode is to give my listeners and my watchers a to give a little background of themselves of who you are.
Sure.
So, would you like to do that?
No, absolutely. So first and foremost, I always tell everybody, because you'd kill me if I don't. I'm a proud husband to my wife. We have a family of five girls.
All
Yeah. Ranging, the youngest is 16. I'm not allowed to talk about the oldest one as far as age, because
right.
again, it reveals ages and she doesn't like those things. But we also have a grandson, Leo, who actually just turned 3 yesterday. So that's exciting. I've been in the field of education now for about 15 years. I've served as a teacher, I've served as a lead teacher, I've been an assistant principal. Now I've been a principal for about 6, 7 years now, spending 4 years here. I'm at Plato Learning Academy, as you said, on the far west side of Chicago. I'm in the Austin neighborhood, probably about as far west as you could possibly go. And on the other side of that, I started up a company called CW Consulting. I go and I present at conferences, I train teachers, I speak to students and the staff. And so that's kind of my side thing, but it's an opportunity to still almost be in that classroom type of environment, and do what I love most, which is talking about education.
All right. All right. That's good. That's very good. Um, so let's just get right into today's episode. On today, we're going to talk about why are educators, why are they leaving the education field? And I quite talk about this on my podcast. Um, and to me, I just don't quite understand like why are so many of them, why are they just leaving the education field? Is it because of the working environment that they're in? Or is it because I know that they're not getting paid enough, which they should. All teachers, they need to get paid enough. Just like I want to hear from you, like what are quite your thoughts on this?
Sure. So I don't think it's any one thing, right? And I think you touched on some of them. I think one definitely is pay. I was actually doing just some of my own research not too long ago, and just looked at the average cost of inflation, right, over the last like 10 years compared
Mhm.
to teacher salaries. And there's a huge difference between the two, right? So even though the cost of living has continued to rise in America, teacher salaries have barely moved for the most part, right? And I know, like right here in CPS, there was just a whole teacher strike not too long ago,
Mhm.
and some people were scoffing at it because they say now the average teacher, by the time we hit all of our marks, will be receiving $100,000. Right,
Mhm.
will be an average salary, which some people scoff and say, well, teachers, they shouldn't make that much. Um, I think there's a mentality around education, right? Well, you guys have the summers off, and it's, the reality is we have 180 days with students, but we're
Mhm.
never really
Mhm.
off.
Yeah.
So I think that starts to stem into this other idea of there's not really a true understanding of what happens in education, right? There are policymakers, decision makers who have spent very little time, if any, in a classroom environment, but who are saying, hey, this is what's best for our teachers, this is what's best for our students. So teachers are sitting in situations where they're not making enough to cover their expenses. Many of them are working multiple jobs, and coupled with the idea that they're being forced to adhere to these policies and systems and procedures that are not what's best, right? But now I'm being evaluated against these, either archaic or ludicrous concepts. And, it's not surprising that people just say, I'm done, I'm tired, I'm going to go somewhere else, I'm going to do this other thing, and make more money, right? And not have to deal with this nonsense. And it's sad, right? I mean, the idea that if a teacher lasts at least 5 years in the field of education in a classroom, right, is impressive. And 5 years is not very long. Yet that's the bar that we've set, and so, it's unfortunate, and things definitely have to change if we're going to expect teachers to remain, in the classroom and just in this field in general.
Yeah. I totally agree with you with that. I absolutely do. And I feel that's probably one of the main reasons is they probably feel that they are like overwhelmingly, they are just like stressed all the time because they have, so much going on in their lives, and it's just they trying to keep it all, and you just can't. You had to like balance it out, and it's just like really getting to them. So that's how I feel. It's just they're just really getting like overwhelmingly stressed at their jobs each and every day coming in, because they're trying to do so much for their students each and every day. And it's just really getting to them. So
it was interesting, Damian. I spent some time in China a few years ago. I spent 2 weeks there connecting with schools, and I was speaking to teachers who had said, I've been in education, I've been here for 20, 30 years. And I was impressed. And I said, oh, you've been in education? No, I've been at this school for that long. And I was curious. And so I started asking, well, that's impressive considering, as I shared with you, here in the States, right, we have a bar of 5 years. And I started asking about their structure, their setup. And they said, well, we teach for a few hours a day. And I said, a few hours, like, what do you do with the rest of that time? And they said, well, we plan, we grade, we write, we do all of that stuff. And they asked, when do your teachers do that? And I said, well, at home and on the weekends. And they were flabbergasted, like, no, right? There's a distinct definition between work time and family personal time. Right. And I think, like you said, that there's so much stress because, we're just running all day long. And then I get 45 minutes, to try to prep and plan and do all that stuff. And that's nowhere near. So I'm spending my weekends doing it, and right, to try to find that balance is nearly impossible.
Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely agree. And another one is about the disciplinary issues is what I have. I know that all teachers, especially Black male teachers, and I quite talk about this on my podcast as well, they feel like some school districts, they quite feel like they want us to quite handle it all, us. And to me, I quite don't really understand, like, why do they want us to quite do it all? Because they probably feel like, like it should be quite us who should do it the most, and not quite like the other teachers, because probably we have, like, probably more experience of quite doing it. So that may be like another reason, perhaps, maybe. I don't, what do you quite think of that, to be honest?
Sure. So, I'm part of a working group where it's all Black male leaders. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that we often talk about, even though we are assistant principals, principals, and other leadership roles, we're often viewed as managers, not leaders, right? Managers. And so, as you're saying that, oftentimes I think that men of color in education are viewed with that role, saying, hey, we need you to help manage situations. We need you to manage children. We need you to take care of these, right? And we kind of get pigeonholed in that area then, right? We become very good at it. Not to mention we have other skills, but it's like that is now your role. Your role is to manage misbehavior, right? So we see a lot of us in the roles of deans, right? But as I was just having a conversation yesterday with Kwame, we need to be able to showcase, right, what we are able to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so even in my school right now, we have a huge focus on SEL, restorative justice, and our discipline problems have dropped drastically, right? We have 50% less referrals this year than we have had last year, right? We've had one fight in our school the entire year. And unfortunately, that was just, a few days ago. But that then gives us the opportunity to say, hey, look at all these other things that we can do as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of going off of something that I'm really touting right now is called that counter narrative, right? And it's based on the works done by Dr. Howard out in California. And it's this idea of changing the dominant narrative, right? Because people, like you said, people view us as these managers, and it's time that we stand up and say, no, yes, I can do that, but that's one aspect of what I'm capable of. So allow me to be these other things. Allow me to be an instructional leader. Allow me to be a coach. Allow me to be a counselor, right? All these other areas. And I've worked very hard to create a staff here at our school that is extremely diverse, right? That reflects the student body in the school. And so when I talk to people, they say, wait, your social worker is a man of color, your counselor is a woman of color, right? Your dean, your security guard, you're like everybody. And I've tried to surround my students with individuals that look like them. And it's for that reason to say, we've got this, right? We're not just managers. And so I think that's the issue, right? We allow people to put us in that position, and we got to stand up and say, no, I'm so much more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree with you on that. Um, so another that came to my mind is there's a lack of support system, especially probably to the first year teachers. I feel, because they truly like needed to them the very first year that they are there, because if they don't, how are they gonna feel that kind of energy being at that school that they want to be in for so many years, and there's not like a working quite environment for them. So I feel like that's probably like another reason why many educators are probably leaving. Do you um, agree with on that as well?
Yeah. Creating a support system for first year teachers, even veteran teachers, right,
Right.
it is important. Having a mentor system in your school. And so one of the things that we try to do, for example, is we have mentors for teachers who are new to the building, even if they're veterans, and then teachers who are just new to the craft, right? Because there's learning curves in both of those cases. And you're right. I don't believe teacher preparation programs truly prepare teachers. I mean, I remember going through a prep program, and my first year, right, it was rough, right? I remember crying. I don't cry, right? Because I was like, I was not trained for the ridiculousness that I was encountering, right? The reality. A lot of it was theory. A lot of it was, this romanticized version. And then you hit the reality and you're like, whoa. So unless I had people there to support me, I don't think I'd be sitting here to talk to you right now. And so yeah, definitely having somebody to say, hey, these are the ropes of the school, this is the culture of the school, but then also this is the reality of education, right? And sometimes it's just an ear, right? Just to listen to the vent and say, hey, I'm frustrated, I'm concerned, I'm this, I'm that. It's huge. So it's important for, I think, leaders to create that environment in their school, where there's those support systems in place, right? And regardless of who it may be, it doesn't have to be, a 10-year veteran that has to be that mentor, right? It's somebody who has a strong understanding, a grasp of what's going on, that could support a brand new teacher.
Yep, totally agree. So I feel like I hope that I do not quite like be in any of those particular conditions, because I want to be a teacher. That is just like my main goal right there. And to me, I know, I understand, and I talk about this on my podcast. I understand that teachers, they don't get paid enough. I understand that. But to me, that is not quite like my main focus on that. My truly like main focus is to teach my students, is to be there with them every single day, to pour out my heart out to them. To me, like, that's just like the money. Probably, I know that's like a big deal for teachers. I understand that, but to me, it's just about the students, teaching them, and that is what I feel like I was called on this earth to do, is to teach students, to be a better person out of them, to impact every one of their lives. So that is what I quite feel like. So I'm just like hoping that I never quite like fall in any of those conditions right there. But it's just something, because many teachers, I just hate it that they are leaving the education field. I just really hate it, because we need more teachers to teach our students. We really do. We absolutely do.
Absolutely. And so, Damian, I would recommend that, go into the field, find yourself somebody who you can rely and trust on, somebody who has some experience, who even if they're not in your building, right? Somebody that you can fall back and just talk to. It helps. My wife is a teacher, and so in the evenings she'll talk to me about her things. I talk to her, and I mean, like I said, we've been in this for almost 15 years now. And still to this point, like, you need that person to be able to say, hey, walk me through this. Hear my ideas, hear me out. And on the other side, it's just to be authentic, right? To be you. I think so many people come into education, right? And they see the Pinterest boards and they see, all these things, and they're like, that's going to be me, right? I'm going to be this rock star teacher, and try to be something or someone that they're not. And it's like, it's okay. Yeah. Be who you are. And as you said, if you truly care about the students, right? If you really want to build those relationships, things are going to be okay. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, right? You're going to have those rough days. I mean, even now there's days I'm like, man, am I in the right field, right? But you're right, because at the end of the day, when those students come to you and they say, thank you, Mr. Williams, right? That if, thank you for this, or I appreciate this, right? You're like, yeah, I know what I'm doing is right. And I share with my teachers all the time. And so the same thing with you is that this is a field of delayed gratification, right? I have students who are grown men and women now who I happen to see, and they come up and say, thank you. And I'm like, you despised me, right? When I was your teacher, right? You were running around the room, you were doing X, Y, and Z, and they're like, yeah, I know. But I appreciate what you did, right? And so I tell teachers that all the time, is that it may not make sense now, but our job right now is we're planting seeds, yes. Right? And that those things will grow and be harvested later, and that's not our job, right? Our job is to plant those seeds and get that ready to happen. And it's frustrating sometimes, but if you know what's coming down the road, it helps to push on. So, I hope you do become a teacher. And I'm sure if you keep those things in mind, you're going to be phenomenal at it.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Um, so that is all that I have to quite discuss on this particular topic. So um because I quite now, because the past over a couple of weeks when I had talked about this on my podcast, and then when I had talked about it doing IG Live, I was like, didn't quite understand of why educators, they was just leaving the education field. I just didn't quite understand. But quite now, I quite get like a understanding. You need to do what's best for you. If you feel like you want to leave, go ahead and do it. If you truly believe that they are not doing what's best for you, just go ahead and leave. Do whatever that you feel that you want to do. So that's what I believe in. So I'm just so now I just have like a better understanding of why that's the case now. So I would like to thank you for coming on my show today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, and you are very welcome to come back on anytime you like.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I would look forward to doing this again.
Yes, and also I would like to have you on my podcast as well, Future Educators Talk. If you would like to come on, that's all right. Where can people like follow you at, so to get like a feel of like who you quite are and stuff, like where can like follow you at to stuff like that?
Sure. So I'm all over Twitter. So my Twitter and my Instagram handle are the exact same. It's _CW Consulting. And then you can also find me on my website, cwconsultingservice.com. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I go around and I speak and things like that. So just a little plug, if you don't mind.
Right.
I'll be in New Orleans at the end of March. So, if you want me to come out and do anything with the work down in NOLA and the Big Easy, love your city, by the way. Feel free to reach out. And then I'm also doing a tour, the Counter Narrative Tour, in the Chicagoland area the first week of April. So, trying to keep my schedule busy, taking care of some things and sharing out. So.
All right. So, that is going to be it on today's episode of Afternoon Talk with Damian. So, y'all make sure y'all follow me on all my social media accounts and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss any new future episodes. So, make sure you do that. So, until next time, I will see y'all in the next video. So, y'all have a fantastic day.